Everybody, welcome in to another episode of the NFL Seekers podcast. Today, we're going to be recapping week 15 of the NFL season. A lot of stars didn't really perform too well for the fantasy playoffs, so I'm sure a lot of you guys are sad. A lot of you guys may have benefited from that. Yeah, just a crazy week, crazy overall weekend. I'll get our picks out of the way. It was looking like I was going to lose picks, and Drew Lock just absolutely came to the rescue on Monday Night Football, and he
Is
tied it
that
up.
what won you picks or
Drew
tied
Lock
it?
tied it up for me. We tied picks because Drew Lock just did the improbable and came
Mhm.
through. So we tied it, and it was looking really rough for me.
Brutal. Can't
Uh,
even believe that. What a Monday night game though. Coming at you live on a Monday night. Absolutely electric stuff from Drew Lock. Should be a starter in the NFL, in my opinion. Definitely better than some other ones.
he's a really, really good backup. He's the backup, the ideal backup that you'd love to have
Mhm.
for sure. I'm excited to go over that game. It was a crazy fun game, weird game. And let's hurry and get into the new MVP segment that we're doing. We're gonna kind of just stay up to date with the MVP odds. And we got a new favorite. The new favorite for MVP is this guy right here, Brock Purdy. He's absolutely taken the league by storm the last few weeks. The Niners are the best team in the NFL and rolling. So it's pretty rightful that he does take that number one spot. Lamar Jackson is actually at number two. I feel like that's pretty deserving as well. The last few weeks I've been saying that Lamar is the MVP candidate that no one's talking about, and he's very deserving. We saw it Sunday night. And then number three is Dak Prescott. So out of the three candidates, who are you thinking should be MVP? Brock Purdy is the minus 190 favorite right now. He's first in all of these categories in the NFL. He's first in pass rating, pass touchdowns, pass touchdown slash interception ratio, pass touchdown with attempt ratio, yards and attempt ratio, yards per completion, and wins. So he's just balling. But who do you think it should be?
He rightfully is the MVP right now. Last week I would have said Dak, but after this week, it just proves that what Purdy's doing is consistent, and he's on the best team in the NFL right now, and he's just dealing, and he's not making any mistakes, and he's just going out there and playing ball, and so rightfully so, Purdy is the MVP favorite. I mean, he is just absolutely playing electric football right now.
Yeah, I think it's definitely deserved. And I guess we'll transition into our stud of the week segment. We had a lot of studs to go over, really. There's a lot of guys that helped you guys win your fantasy playoff matchups, hopefully. So I'll shout out some honorable mentions real quick, like Jared Goff and Sam Laporta, who murdered the Broncos on Saturday night. James Cook, who single-handedly beat the Cowboys, Brock Purdy, obviously. And then our stud of the week, it's very long overdue. He hasn't gotten one this year, but it's Christian McCaffrey. He's making every single fantasy football owner look just completely stupid, and that's why I wanted to highlight him as the stud of the week. Why did we not draft Christian McCaffrey with the first overall pick in our drafts? And no one can say they did. Everyone drafted Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase over McCaffrey, like consensusly across all of fantasy football, and he's just making us all look stupid this whole season. He's having a LaDainian Tomlinson type season. Just draft him first overall in 2024. That's kind of the takeaway here. He's such a stud. He goes 18 for 115 and one touchdown on the ground, five catches for 72 yards, and two receiving touchdowns for three total touchdowns this week. He blew up and lost a lot of people fantasy playoffs and won a lot of people fantasy playoffs. So that's our stud of the week.
Yeah, he was just absolutely insane. 20 scrimmage touchdowns already this year, getting it done through the air and on the ground. It's just, yeah, everyone overthinks Christian McCaffrey because of the injuries, but I mean, he's finally behind a good offensive line with a good team, and he's the focal point of that offense. And I think everyone just kind of overthought it to an extent. Another guy who we overthought was this dude, Bijan Robinson, because what is happening with Bijan Robinson? This is our blue collar LaDainian Tomlinson type prospect. And he goes this week, 7 carries, 11 yards, and a fumble. It was just a brutal showing from Bijan Robinson, which I think he ended up with 0.4 fantasy points. So for all you fantasy, people in the playoffs, which I don't know if you had Bijan, you probably weren't in the playoffs just because you whiffed on your first pick, which I did in like 4 leagues. I'm right there with you, but I mean, brutal showing from Bijan, and just kind of a glimpse of just how this year's gone for Bijan fantasy owners.
Yeah, the example of a goof of the week performance for Bijan, really. And on top of those terrible stats that you mentioned, it was a season low number of snaps played. So that's terrible. He's trending in the wrong direction. Tyler Algier had double the amount of carries. That's careless. It's crazy. And it's starting a real discussion. Like we're gonna have a real painful discussion here. You can't be starting Bijan in your fantasy playoffs. In our co-manager league, we advanced to the next round, and we're not going to be starting Bijan. It was not thanks to Bijan that we advanced. And I think most Bijan managers didn't advance to the second round of your playoffs. So just if you did advance, do not start this guy Bijan. I feel bad. He's like a very, very low end RB2. And it's just it was a terrible pick. We drafted the wrong rookie running back, really.
Yeah, no, he was the wrong pick. And we're confident in saying that we're starting Jaden Reed or Rashee Rice over Bijan, and we're doing that with confidence because there's absolutely no faith in Bijan, especially heading into the fantasy playoffs where the implications are so high.
100%. So take that away. If you take anything away all episode, really, because it's just looking rough. Arthur Smith does not want to use the guy. And with that, we'll get on to our game recaps. We'll start off with a pretty legendary one here on Thursday Night Football in the desert in Vegas. The 5-8 Chargers went into Vegas and played the 5-8 Raiders and lost 63-21. I have no words. My only takeaway is Antonio Pierce definitely is an NFL head coach. So I'm just gonna say that, and I'm gonna let you talk and vent, buddy. I'm sorry, and I'll let you just say what you need to say.
You know what? I'm feeling good about it. At the end of the day, good riddance, Brandon Staley. Good riddance, Tom Telesco. It was the beatdown we needed to move forward in this organization and change something up and change the culture up. It was obviously painful and embarrassing and humiliating to watch, and it just made you cringe. At one point, when it got to 42-0, I was like, okay, this is just. I mean, you started laughing. It was 21-0. This is so funny. And then when it became 42-0, it just wasn't funny anymore. And I don't think chairman, owner, Dean Spanos thought it was too funny because the next day, Brandon Staley and Tom Telesco were out of the building. So a breath of fresh air for the Chargers. In all reality, we're like, if you're a Chargers fan, if you're a Panthers fan, if you're a Patriots fan, we're looking forward to the draft. So we want to lose out. We want those high picks, and you know what? It's Brock Bowers season, so let's go.
Yeah, you've been sending me a lot of mock drafts for the Chargers, and that is definitely the fun part of things. If you guys are draft fiends like us and your team is kind of out of things, go check out our NFL mock draft that we recently posted. We're gonna have a lot more draft content coming out soon. But yeah, the Chargers ultimately just weren't there. They weren't really playing football, I don't think, in this game. They might have just been gambling, and they hired a bunch of actors to go play in their jerseys because it was a bad performance. It was just dominance. Like I said earlier at the top, Antonio Pierce is a head coach because he just had these guys playing with their heads on fire in just a random Thursday night football matchup that was meaningless. And they like it was kind of getting uncomfortable. I was getting a little bit uncomfortable. They were just it was like 60-0, and the Raiders would just make a hard tackle, a hard hit, and they would just get up and scream, and it was scary. Like they were playing hard. So shout out to Antonio Pierce. He does just put a good mentality into this team, and I actually do love to see it. He had Jack Jones completely rejuvenated. He had a great pick six, one of the cooler pick sixes I've seen. Speaking of Jack Jones, he had a 94.2 PFF grade. So yeah, really fun from the Raiders to kind of get a route going on, something in a kind of a not fun season to make you excited.
Yeah, and I think also from another Chargers perspective, just how grateful we should be that we have Keenan Allen and Justin Herbert. Um, you see what this team is without him, and it's not pretty.
Yeah, that might be the biggest takeaway, honestly, is Herbert is him. Like how did he make this team look competent? How?
How did Herbert have every even against, the best team in the AFC, in my opinion, the Ravens, how Herbert played within 3 points of them. So it shows you something and what a war daddy hero Herbert is for this organization. And hopefully we get the right coach and general manager to help him have a successful career.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of right coach, I'm going to say it again. Like Antonio Pierce, I really just loved what he was doing. He had the Raiders trying to murder Easton Stick in like the fourth quarter, still just a fighter mentality, a UFC fighter mentality in Vegas. So you love to see it. not really into fantasy takeaways in this game at all. At all. It was just a crazy, weird game.
Yeah, it was a wildly weird game. And if you picked up the Raiders defense this week like Danny did, um, that was a good move. You ended with like 30 points. So congratulations. That was brilliant.
Yeah, I did say the Raiders were one of the better options in our preview episode, so that was good. And yeah, I guess monitor the Josh Jacobs injury. If he's back, then you obviously play him. If he's not, then Zamir White is a good start. And I think that's literally the only fantasy takeaway in this one. So we'll go on to the next one, the first Saturday game. The Vikings went into Cincinnati and lost the Bengals 27-24. I don't know if you saw it, but Jake Browning had his Kirk Cousins moment, and he was screaming and he found the camera at the end. You should have never cut me, and that was pretty funny. Jake Browning, I'd never seen him that animated, but he's been playing good, man. He's like actually been playing solid football. He's the Vikings aren't a bad team. They're in the sixth seed in the NFC still, so a good win from the Bengals. They're kind of rolling. They're in a good position right now, and it's fun what Jake Browning's doing. He's getting it to all the stars, and Mixon's been balling. Chase Brown's getting involved. They're a fun team. I like what the Bengals are doing. They're like in the thick of things for the AFC playoff race.
Yeah, I mean it shows you what a well-rounded team the Bengals are. And even the Vikings, they both lose their starting quarterbacks and they're both competitive and both in this playoff race right now. So this ended up being a heck of a game. Obviously the Bengals with kind of a crazy comeback here at the end, 21 point fourth quarter, taking it, the win in overtime. Jake Browning dealing that crazy play to T. Higgins, somehow he scored. I mean, it was crazy. But I mean, shout out to Nick. Vikings fans shouldn't feel too bad. I mean, Nick Mullins came in this game and absolutely, he played good. He played winning football for this team, and he was somewhat dealing. But yeah, Jake Browning kind of for real at this point. A solid, solid, quarterback number two for this Bengals team, and they can win without Joe Burrow. We've seen it firsthand with Jake Browning right now. So, the Bengals are hot. They're rolling. Their defense is, I mean, everyone seems to be playing electric. I want to shout out Trey Hendrickson, probably one of the most underrated defensive players in the NFL, and probably a top five defensive player in the NFL. I mean, he is just, insane. I mean, Trey Hendrickson is all over the ball. He has the most quiet 15 sack season right now. It's wild to me how much he's not talked about, I feel like.
Yeah, and he's an absolute game wrecker that isn't talked about at all. And yeah, like I feel like Jake Browning hasn't had a bad game. Like going into fantasy, you could kind of start Jake Browning in your fantasy playoffs. It was a scary start this week, but it definitely would have paid off. A lot of the kind of no-name quarterbacks went off this week. It was a crazy week, but for fantasy, like you said, both these backup quarterbacks are making these options good. Like Nick Mullins had a decent game. He honestly, there were a lot of productive Vikings. Ty Chandler was an absolute star on the ground. Anyone with eyes knew that Madison's not a starting running back, and Ty Chandler was always the main starter in this team that they should have leaned in on. And Kevin O'Connell said that they're going to give him the featured role. So you fire up Ty Chandler, who looks awesome. You fire up Justin Jefferson, who got a lot of volume. T.J. Hawkinson, obviously, and Jordan Addison. He makes some plays, man. Those two touchdowns were special. Just him making absolute plays. So he's a beast. And then for the Bengals, Jamar Chase is going to go down. He's going to miss a few weeks. So, like you said, T. Higgins, he has 10-foot long arms with that touchdown he scored. That was a crazy touchdown. But yeah, T. Higgins is a really, really good option this week. And Joe Mixon's really like league winning right now.
Yes, 100%. If T. Higgins, who's kind of fallen asleep this year, is going to have an absolutely crazy end to the year for the fantasy playoff. So get him started in your lineups. But just want to say something. I mean, the Bengals are on a 3-game winning streak, and in the last 3 games, they've scored 34, 34, and 27. So Jake Browning is getting points. This team is scoring points. And the ceiling's very high for this Bengals team moving forward against the Steelers, Chiefs, and then the Browns ending it. So look out for the Bengals. It's going to be a run for them.
And they're not beating that bad of teams the last 3 games too. So yeah, shout out to Jake Browning. He hasn't been shabby at all. He hasn't really had a bad performance at all. So it's really fun. We'll go on to the next Saturday game. The Steelers went into Indy and got smacked by the Colts 30-13. The Colts secure the W even with Zach Moss and Michael Pittman going out mid-game. They leaned on the backups, and the backups still just dominated the starting Steelers defense. It was a kind of deflating and embarrassing for the Steelers. Trubisky does get benched for Mason Rudolph, which is a positive, I guess, but still very, very gross territory we're talking here. So, yeah, just interesting game. And like I said, for the Colts, their backups really stepped up. And I did want to shout out this guy right here, DJ Montgomery. Not gonna lie, I didn't know too much about him before Saturday, but he played in the XFL. I think this is the first time we've been introduced to a new player all season, and we're kind of nerds, so I feel like this is fun and something I wanted to talk about. DJ Montgomery, don't know anything about him, but he looked really fun. He was like a gadget player for the Colts, so I'm honestly super intrigued. The first player we've been introduced to all year.
Yeah, no, and he had a bad drop and then he came back and scored a really good touchdown. And it was just like, who the heck is this guy? All of a sudden you hear it on your NFL red zone and you're like DJ Montgomery. They made David Montgomery, wrong team. But yeah, DJ Montgomery, kind of a cool game. Kind of got an opportunity when Michael Pittman got absolutely blown up. Oh my gosh, that play was brutal. I thought he died for a second. But yeah, I mean, this was a game that shows that the Steelers were probably the worst team that somehow still has a positive record and still are. I think they still hold the last seed in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just shows you that somehow this team is so bad and yet are still in the playoffs, and I don't think they will be for much longer.
I am agreeing with you on that. I was kind of scared that the Steelers would just be a lock for the playoffs because their schedule is really, really easy. But you saw it, they dropped games to the Patriots and Colts. So the Steelers are really in trouble here. They're starting Mason Rudolph in a big division game this week. So the Steelers are just trending in the very, very wrong direction at the very wrong time. And they're not just getting momentum going into the playoffs. It's not looking good for their playoff hopes. So yeah, that's unfortunate for the Steelers. It's honestly just like I can't really think of too many positive takeaways. That offense is rough. It might be called worse than Matt Canada was calling it. Like it's bad.
Yeah, Mitch Trubisky is not a good quarterback, and that's kind of our takeaway for this one. And the Colts are competitive, and I think the Colts are they're in a chance. The Colts right now and the Texans and the Jaguars all are kind of in like a three-way chance to win the AFC South. So that'll come down to the wire, and it'll be exciting to see how these final three games shake out.
Yeah, the Colts are just a really exciting team. They're really in the thick of things for that division, which is crazy. And for fantasy takeaways, Trey Sermon could be a stash. DJ Montgomery could be stashes, just depending on the Zach Moss and Michael Pittman injuries. But other than that, I don't really think there's takeaways. Najee Harris is terrible. You don't start any of the Steelers running backs. I made a mistake in the league starting Najee and I lost, and I don't want to talk about that at all, to be honest. And the Steelers, other than Deontay Johnson, are not startable.
100%. Yeah, there was a run that Najee Harris had a big giant. Oh,
Everyone's seen it. I'm sure everyone's seen
yeah,
it. Like that
you've
was
seen
bad.
it on Instagram, you've seen it on TikTok, whatever you're watching. It's Najee Harris is. I'm gonna say it probably right now. He's not a very good running back.
He has to have the worst vision in NFL history. I saw Le'Veon Bell saying LOL to that video earlier, and it's funny because they're the complete opposites. It's funny.
So Steelers fans, it's probably gonna be a rough one to end the season. And Colts fans, you're trending the right way.
Yeah, kind of opposite takeaways for both these teams with similar records. But with that, we'll get on to the last Saturday game. The Broncos went into Detroit and got wrecked to the Lions, 42-17. The Lions asserted their dominance in this one. They look completely back. I picked the Broncos, and if I'm being completely honest, so they were without Frank Ragnow and Graham Glasgow, I believe, the week before, the 2 weeks before, I believe. So their interior offensive line was kind of getting wrecked, and I had no clue that Frank Ragnow was already back, and he came in this game and kind of won this game. He was just dominant. He allowed zero pressures, and my main reason for picking the Broncos was I thought like Zach Allen and the Broncos D line was kind of going to eat and make it hard on Goff, but no, it was the opposite. Goff just absolutely ate. He had a day. He fed Laporta. He got Laporta the hat trick. Amon-Ra doing backflips into the end zone. It's just really fun for the Lions. They're dominant, and the Broncos kind of come back down to earth defensively, especially.
Yeah, I mean, and these Lions had an absolute heyday on the ground. Jameer Gibbs, 11 carries, 100 yards, 9.1 yards per carry, and a touchdown. And then even David Montgomery getting 17 carries, 85 yards with 5 yards a carry. So they were just absolutely exposing the Broncos' run defense with their very good and rejuvenated offensive line this week with Frank Ragnow. And yeah, Jared Goff couldn't miss. I mean, he was just dealing. He goes 24 of 34 for 276 and 5 touchdowns. Amon-Ra St. Brown was insane. And Sam Laporta, new tight end one, apparently in fantasy football moving forward going into next year. Sam Laporta is the real deal and looks to only get better. I mean, if you drafted Sam Laporta this year, 758 receiving yards on the season to go along with 9 touchdowns and 71 receptions. He was a league winner. So congratulations to anyone who got Sam Laporta.
Just what an absolute stud. Week winner. If you guys had him, he probably had made you guys advance to the next round of the playoffs. And yeah, so fun. The whole Lions offense just output insane stats. Jahmyr Gibbs was dominant. He was the highest graded running back on the week in PFF, and that really showed. If you just watch this game, he was better than pretty much everyone else on the field. He was just a absolute star. He's a big bright spot for this Lions team moving forward. For the Broncos, it was rough. They'll get better. Their schedule gets a lot easier down the road. It's not the worst loss in the world. The Lions are a really good team, but yeah, I don't think there's any fantasy takeaways in this one. Javonte was really rough, but that's about the only takeaway. The Lions, you just start everyone. They're insane.
Oh, yes. You just said it perfect. And yeah, the Lions head into the fantasy playoffs with Ben Johnson as the offensive coordinator, who is the future coach of the Chargers. Just going to say that right now. You should be happy because this coach is electric and he can put up points on a scoreboard real fast.
As we saw Saturday. And with that, we'll get on to the next one. The first Sunday game, the Jets went into Miami and got dominated and shut out 30-0 by the Dolphins. This guy Bradley Chubb just kind of completely took over the whole game. I guess we'll just shout out Bradley Chubb. He literally took this game over from the start, manhandled that Jets offensive line, and he made the Jets very uncomfortable. He made it so they could not get settled into this game, and there was really no hope from the get-go. This Dolphins defense has just stepped up greatly. Vic Fangio's done a really good job making quarterbacks uncomfortable, and he kind of teed off in this one with his pass rush. Bradley Chubb leading the way.
Yeah, I think the key to beating the Jets is just pressuring the quarterback and stacking the box and sending the house because they can't handle it. They don't know how to pick up, whether it's the offensive line or the quarterback, whatever the miscommunication, they don't do well against the blitz, and that showed statistically all season. To teams that bring pressure against them, they crumble up and fall, and you see they literally quit on their team. The Jets just literally, their quarterback literally just was dehydrated and just went and quit on the team and never came back out. So kind of that was an interesting game, but I mean it was just the Dolphins without Tyreek Hill just dominated. It was just a dominant performance. They're the better team, and then they clearly showed it.
Yeah, Jalen Waddle slipped right into that Tyreek Hill role, dominated. Jalen Waddle, absolute boom week if you had him in fantasy. He's a star. Raheem Mostert continues his dominance on the ground with 2 touchdowns. It's the Dolphins just completely rolled, and like Bradley Chubb said after the game, they kind of had to. They have a lot to prove. They were coming off a really ugly Monday night loss. The Dolphins haven't really beat the best teams. They do have a lot to prove. So that was a really positive performance that gets you optimistic for the next few weeks. They got some
Yeah.
tough games coming up.
And if you listen to us, we told you that the Jets were definitely going to regress to the mean this week, and that's exactly what happened. They kind of had a little boom week last week that got their fans hopeful and excited, but don't get excited until you have a confident Aaron Rodgers back, and look forward to next season. And then at this point, tank for the best draft pick you can get.
And fantasy takeaways, you don't have to do any takeaways for the Jets because if you add Brees Hall and Garrett Wilson, you're definitely not still in the playoffs. And for the Dolphins, you start every Dolphin. They're insane, and you're really optimistic that they're kind of back. Any other takeaways on this one, though?
No, shout out Bradley Chubb, monster out there. Love the image that you have on the screen. That was kind of Bradley Chubb's day, and that forced fumble he did was a crazy hit. That was awesome.
Yeah, for the takeaways, I kind of try to do images that kind of sum up the game. And I feel like this just sums up the game perfectly, this one image. So that was perfect. And with that, we'll get on to the next one. The Chiefs went into New England and won 27-17. The main storyline in this one is Rashee Rice continues to dominate in his emergence as a real wide receiver one for the Chiefs. He honestly has looked like a real wide receiver one. He's kind of done it all. You would like to see them use him more on the outside, but they are starting to use him more on the outside. He's really producing, and he's been like a wide receiver one in fantasy the last few weeks. The running backs really balled out. Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Jerick McKinnon did a great job filling in for Pacheco. A lot of touchdowns. McKinnon's throwing touchdowns. Really fun week for the Chiefs. They kind of got right after a gross loss. So you love it.
I mean, yes, they did get right, but also at the same time, I feel like it was a struggle for the Chiefs.
It was a
I feel like,
gross get right.
yeah, it was. It was a gross. I mean, Mahomes threw for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 2 interceptions against the Patriots. Bailey's average was pretty terrible, but they still played competitive in this game. And the Chiefs kind of started to pull away a little bit, but I mean, they never really officially pulled away. I mean, it kind of seems like the Patriots just got in their own way, and almost like the Patriots had every opportunity to take and win this game. But yeah, I mean, I there's this is the Chiefs win, so congratulations. It was a get right game for you, but it was kind of an ugly get right game, and the Chiefs at this point, honestly, moving forward, do not scare me that much. I think they are no longer the big bad wolf of the AFC. And I think they are probably one of the most beatable teams, who's in playoff contention. So I'm just gonna say this, yeah, the Chiefs are no longer the big bad wolf of the league, and they are a beatable team at this point.
Yeah, they definitely just aren't that same scary team that they've been. Travis Kelce isn't the same scary player that he's been. He hasn't been that dominant wide receiver one that you really, really need to be scared of. So that has really made a difference for this Chiefs team. They're not as scary at all. That is definitely kind of the takeaway, but we've had that takeaway for a few weeks now, and it's kind of aged well. Not really any fantasy takeaways in this one. It is looking like Isaiah Pacheco is going to be back this week, so that kind of makes it easy. Obviously, Rashee Rice is a star, and I don't think you want to start any Patriots outside of Zeke, honestly.
Yeah, no, just Zeke is getting enough volume to make him a considerable start. But yeah, there's not much moving forward with Bailey Zappi. But yeah, on the Chiefs side of things, Rashee Rice is looking like a star, man, and he's a stud. So, and whoever the Chiefs starting running back is, because they are the run first Chiefs, you can feel pretty confident in starting them.
Yeah, definitely. And with that, we'll get on to the next one. The Bears went into Cleveland and lost to the Browns 20-17. A really close one. The Bears actually kind of had this game, and they let the Browns take it on a great Joe Flacco throw. I'll be honest, Joe Flacco, he had what was it, 3 picks? And yeah, 3 picks, and he bounced back with that throw. It might have been the throw of the year to Amari Cooper. It was a very, very beautiful throw, pinpoint, and Amari Cooper made everything happen after and won the game. It was really fun. David Njoku absolutely balled as well. Flacco is definitely making these options really fun, and he's making these Browns games fun. He's keeping them in games. So I'm liking what I'm seeing from Flacco, even with the picks. It was a really, really good Bears defense. Honestly, like I said before in the preview, the Bears have a top 5 defense, in my opinion. And we saw the young stars, Stevenson, Jalen Johnson. They're all showing out. So it was a really fun game.
Yeah, I would say this is a battle of two defenses, and they both played each other extremely hard. And Justin Fields' stats really don't show, I feel like, how well he honestly played. He went 19 of 40 for 166, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. But I mean, his stats probably should have been a lot better. There was a brutal drop, which I'm sure everyone saw. It was a highlight play from
Anya,
Justin Fields. Yeah, and it was just dropped. It was brutal.
Robert Tonyan needs to be cut for that.
Yeah, that was absolutely just brutal. But it just kind of showed the resiliency though of Joe Flacco and the Browns. I mean, 3 interceptions. It was definitely a rough game. He was getting sacked. Montez Sweat was all over him, and he just showed resilience. And they fought back and won. And Joe Flacco and his connection with David Njoku is lethal at this point. It's looking like Tom Brady to Rob Gronkowski out there.
Yeah, I mean, they've been on an absolute roll in this game specifically. 10 catches, 104 yards, and that great touchdown catch for Njoku, he's absolutely balling. Amari Cooper gets 109 on 4 catches and a touchdown. So, like I said, these Browns options are just balling under Flacco. He's giving everyone opportunities, and he's giving the Browns chances to win games. It's been really fun. Jerome Ford, when you go into fantasy, Jerome Ford kind of has a stinkier performance, so that's a little bit scary. But honestly, I'm optimistic about all the Browns options just because of Flacco. And for the Bears, like you said, Fields honestly did not play bad at all. He kind of left it all out there. They kind of had this game. They should have probably won this game. Cole Kmet also had a really good game. No other takeaways other than don't touch any Bears running backs.
Yeah. At this point, do you think the Bears are feeling confident going into next season with Justin Fields, or is it the Caleb Williams show?
It has to be Caleb Williams. I mean, it has to be. Justin Fields has looked good, and he will get a chance. He's shown so many flashes because he's such a great athlete, but it just has to be Caleb Williams. It has to be. But with that, we'll get on to the next one. The Buccaneers went into Lambeau and beat the Packers 34-20. Baker Mayfield with the absolute masterclass. The first time quarterback has went into Lambeau Field and posted a perfect 158.3 passer rating. Baker went 22 for 28, 381 yards, 4 touchdowns, and just absolutely lit up Lambeau, honestly, in kind of a shootout. And just absolutely fed his star, Rashad White. Rashad White has been a revelation this year. He's been one of the more fun running backs that has been just a fun story to watch. I say this like every podcast. We were huge Rashad White guys coming out of college, and we honestly couldn't even expect it how good he's been. He's been a dominant star running back. So love that. Love Rashad White. Love Mike Evans and Chris Godwin getting involved. And Baker just kind of had a master class in this one. It was really fun.
Yeah, Baker was just dealing in this one. It was just beautiful, and Rashad White kind of just it was kind of just like that fun, and it kind of just seemed like it was for everyone to see just kind of this time of the year of how truly special a running back he is. And he's a true 3 down running back. I mean, and he gets it done through the ground, through the air. I mean, he is just such a dynamic weapon. And I don't mean to toot my own horn. I wish we covered that draft class 2 years ago. But I was a huge Rashad White fan. I mean, I had him as like my RB1 in that class. And you can even ask Dan because I talked Rashad White every 5 seconds to him 2 years ago in that draft class. And he's just really, really, really had a resurgence from last year to this season. And going forward, I mean, Rashad White is probably a top 5 running back in the NFL. And Baker Mayfield, man, Baker Mayfield, just like we said, this is a chippy Bucks team. And they play I don't think they genuinely lost one of their 7 games by more than 3 points. And they've gone at it with anyone. And it's gonna be interesting how they go moving forward. And how they build and if they stick with Baker and everything for the future. But I mean, he's absolutely dealing, and him and Mike Evans' connection is just absolutely awesome.
Yeah, honestly, it is starting at the point where it's like, do we keep Baker another year? Because he is just playing really fun. That game was a master class. It's been really fun. I guess we'll kind of transition over to the Packers, a less positive discussion. Joe Barry needs to be fired. I cannot believe that he's still a defensive coordinator after all these years. It's incredible that he hasn't been fired yet. He's terrible, and we saw that on full display. This Packers defense was just getting annihilated and just picked apart. Jordan Love didn't have the worst game, but it just wasn't electric enough to outduel the Baker Mayfield and Godwin and Evans and Rashad White tandem.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, the Packers, are kind of now trending down. At the wrong time. They were heating up and they were looking very lethal. And now all of a sudden we're on the trending down train, and it's a little scary. But I mean, obviously for Packers fans, it's nothing to hit the panic button about. For like your future, you got the youngest team in the NFL. Jordan Love really is kind of asserting himself as a star in this league. But yeah, it's been a rough couple 2 weeks for the Packers, and hopefully moving forward they can kind of change that around. But yeah, I mean it didn't look great out there for them this week.
Yeah, I think that's the only takeaway that really matters for the Packers is you do have your franchise quarterback, you have your future quarterback that you don't really need to worry about the next few years. So that is awesome. Even if you don't make the playoffs, that is a kind of unfortunate loss for your playoff chances. But yeah, just the Buccaneers. Speaking of playoff chances, they're really helping their playoff chances the last few weeks, beating the Falcons. Now they could definitely win the NFC South. It's really fun what the Buccaneers are doing. They're so competitive. I do have one negative note. Devin White was a healthy inactive, so that's pretty gross. That's crazy. The former fifth overall pick, it's looking like he's not gonna be a Buccaneer in 2024. It's crazy.
Absolutely not. Yeah, brutal, brutal, brutal. I know he was holding out before the season for contract extension. Now he is a healthy scratch for a week, so it's not what we like to see. And then sorry, transitioning back to the Packers though. I mean, what a draft class from the Packers, getting Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave, and Jaden Reed. Those are just a few of the guys, and all very viable, really good starters moving forward for them. Just wanted to shout those three out though in particular.
Yeah, such a fun young group of weapons. I think Christian Watson being out is kind of the main reason they are losing these games. Is Christian Watson is just a really stud for them, and he kind of sets a tone for them, and he's something they're missing for sure. But with that, we'll get on to the next one. The Texans went into Tennessee and lost to the Titans 19-16 in overtime. Just a really great game that the Titans probably shouldn't have lost. But wow, shout out to Case Keenum. Just absolute flash in the pan game from him. Once it got down to that fourth quarter overtime area, you kind of knew Case Keenum was going to shine and come through. Devin Singletary, shout out to Devin Singletary. He won this game for the Texans. He went 26 for 121 on the ground, 49 in the air as well. So Devin Singletary just put the team on his back. I remember a few weeks ago they made Dameon Pierce the workhorse against the Broncos, and now Dameon Pierce gets one snap in this one. So that's just a whole different crazy story. But yeah, shout out to Devin Singletary. He absolutely balled for Case Keenum in this one and won this game. And I think the Titans stars kind of lost them this game. DeAndre Hopkins and Derrick Henry were kind of pathetic. They honestly did lose the game. Derrick Henry, 15 touches for under 15 total scrimmage yards. That's unacceptable in a game where you kind of need to take over. The Titan stars lost in this game. Hopkins had some bad drops. It was bad.
Yeah, no, I mean, going back to Derrick Henry, 0.6 yards per carry, and then four receptions for 1 yard for an average of 0.2 yards per reception. So not Derrick Henry's best game. Pretty pathetic, honestly. That was just brutal performance from them. And yeah, Hopkins did have some pretty bad drops. The whole offense. Honestly, thought Will Levis actually looked pretty good. Will Levis, I think he actually played some pretty tough football. He hung in there. And they probably should have won this game, and they kind of just let Case Keenum and the Texans just kind of fight themselves back into it. And ultimately, Devin Singletary and Case Keenum just won this game. I mean, they played hard enough to keep fighting, and I mean, personal agenda. I really wanted the Titans to win. And yeah, they could not get it done, which is just really frustrating. It's really frustrating from their older guys, their veterans, as we just talked about earlier.
Yeah, definitely. And fantasy takeaways, Devin Singletary is like a must start for next week in fantasy playoffs. I think Devin Singletary is just a huge volume option that you need to play.
Oh, Brown?
Oh yeah. I was gonna say, let's shout out your boy Noah Brown. He absolutely
Mhm.
balled, 8 catches, 82 yards, and a touchdown, even without CJ Stroud. Obviously, he absolutely balled. So if there is no Nico Collins, I think Noah Brown is like a start for fantasy playoffs, which sounds crazy, but I honestly think he's a viable option. The Texans are just a relentless team without Stroud. With Stroud, he's awesome. Dalton Schultz is a start as well. So for the Texans, you love that, and for the Titans, just Hopkins and Henry, but they're both really scary starts at this point.
100%. And yeah, Noah Brown, I think he's a high upside wide receiver one, honestly, without Nico Collins. So get him in your fantasy lineups, monitor Nico Collins, but without Nico Collins, high upside wide receiver one, in my opinion. He was all over the field with Case Keenum, and he was getting tons of targets. So that was awesome to see. I'm a big Noah Brown fan. I've had him on my had him on my roster like all season. Sadly, he's mostly been on the bench, but I mean, he was an absolute stud in this one. Um, with 11 targets coming down with 8 of them. So big bang from Noah Brown.
Yeah, not many waiver options at this point of the year, but if you do have Noah Brown in the waivers, pick him up, especially with all the injuries. It's a great pickup. And with that, we'll go on to the next one. The Giants went into New Orleans and lost to the Saints 24-6. The Saints honestly dominated. They kind of handled the Giants well, and I honestly thought this was going to be a really close kind of 50-50 game. I was nervous for the Saints. I picked the Saints, and I was so back and forth. I I think in our preview episode I said I'm going to pick the Saints, but I'm pretty positive the Giants are winning. That's how non-confident I was. And yeah, the Saints did a good job. They kind of dominated. They controlled this game, and the Saints defensive line kind of dominated and took over this game. And Brian Breesy was all over Tommy DeVito. They were doing the celebration on Tommy DeVito. It was pretty funny stuff. And yeah, the Saints just kind of dominated at home. It was an impressive win.
Yeah, I know they were doing a little Tommy Cutlets out there, but yeah, he didn't even play that bad. I mean, it was I don't blame this one on him. I feel like the team around him just failed, and the Saints just kind of seemed like they had the better roster and just kind of dominated them from that sense. But I mean, little Tommy Cutlets out there. He played okay football. I mean, it wasn't his best game, but he was their leading rusher. He was 20 of 34, 177, no touchdowns. He did get beat up a lot. I mean, the Saints D line was all over him. And yeah, I mean, not a bad game from check down Carr. He's 23 of 28. He did what he needed to do, to ultimately get the win. Alvin Kamara is absolutely a dog. If you have him moving into fantasy playoffs, congratulations. He is just so good. We all overthought Alvin Kamara this year. He ended up being like a fourth round pick, and he's like running back like 4 right now or something. It's crazy.
I have a stat to back that up actually. So Alvin Kamara among running backs this season, and keep in mind he missed the first 3 weeks of the season due to suspension. He has 73 targets, which is the most among running backs, and he has 63 receptions, which is the most among running backs. So like he has more receiving production than Christian McCaffrey, and he's missed 3 weeks. So yeah, just a great pick if you did pick Kamara.
Yeah, I mean, he's been an absolute dog this season, and having check down Carr definitely does help his fantasy value going forward.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we talk a lot of we talk about Derek Carr negatively a lot, but I honestly think that was Derek Carr's best performance of the year. I think that was
But mhm.
eye test wise, at least. I don't even know about statistically, but eye test wise, I do think Derek Carr had his best performance. He was giving the Saints chances, and they were just good this game. Honestly, was impressed by the Saints. So the Bucks and Saints are kind of a close battle to win that NFC South. I'm intrigued to see who gets it. Honestly, they're close.
Yeah, I have talked a lot of crap on Derek Carr, but he played really well this game. So, I'll give him his cutlets for this game. And it was domination, and it's for, yeah, like we said, the Saints, Falcons, it's gonna be a bloodbath race. That whole division's up for grabs, for who's end up gonna win the division ultimately.
Yeah, and not really any fantasy takeaways in this one. Kamara, Saquon, or must starts. Olave was hurt, so that's unfortunate, and that's literally it. Taysom didn't do anything without Olave, so that's unfortunate. You stay away from Taysom, but with that, we'll get on to the next one. Another NFC South matchup. The Falcons went into Carolina and lost to the Panthers 9-7. That's embarrassing. Arthur Smith. That's pretty embarrassing. That's my only takeaway is Desmond Ridder and Arthur Smith. You just went into Carolina and scored 7 points and lost to Bryce Young. I have no words, honestly. Arthur Smith probably shouldn't be an NFL head coach next year, but he will be. Desmond Ridder definitely shouldn't be a NFL quarterback now. Like he should be in the CFL maybe, but yeah, just bad from the Falcons. That's embarrassing. You guys are trying to compete for the NFC South, and you drop a game to the Bucks and then the Panthers, and now you're kind of out of it. And Arthur Smith, I don't know if Arthur Smith was trying to troll the fantasy owners in the playoffs for not giving the ball to Drake London and Bijan as two good players, two only good players, may I add, on offense. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just being too negative. That was embarrassing for the. But shout out to Bryce. Shout out to Bryce and the Panthers. Go Panthers.
They wouldn't actually even watch this game. Can I really say I actually watched any part of this game? They were apparently Fox posted they were selling tickets to this game for 45 cents. It was completely empty.
There are
Uh,
100 people there.
yeah, it was like a WNBA game at this point. It was pathetic. I think WNBA tickets would actually cost more than what it did to get into the Panthers Falcons game. Um, yeah, that was embarrassing. I did actually see randomly. I was out walking my dog. Just a little side story. I saw this dude pull up to a house wearing a Panthers shirt, and then he had his buddy walk out in a Falcons jersey, and I was like, "What in the world?"
They
And
had a
so
watch
I
party
guess
for this
I
game.
guess what? Oh
They
yeah,
had a watch party for this game.
yes, yes. I saw one of my neighbors pull up with a Carolina Panthers jersey, and then somebody come out in a Falcons. So they're obviously two buddies watching the game together, and I can't believe it. I can't believe it. That was just a little side story. I was just like, wow. And then so like I was like curious at the end of the game to like because I like peeped the score because I couldn't even I was watching multi-view. And I couldn't even take this game seriously. I didn't even look at it when it was on. It was just so gross.
Yeah, no, that's hilarious. I can't believe people got together to watch this game of all games. Just I don't even know what you'd be watching this game for, but yeah, it was just gross on all aspects. Like not really any takeaways at all. Shout out to
Yeah,
Bryce
shout out
Young.
Bryce. Yeah,
Yeah,
shout out Bryce Young. Second win, baby, in the NFL. We got more to go.
167 yards, no touchdowns to show for it, no picks to show for it, but we'll take it, baby. We'll take anything we can get.
Panthers fans need a win. They need a win. Doesn't even matter. They don't even have the first pick. So it's brutal. It's brutal out there in Carolina right now.
Yeah. Shout out to Bryce Young getting that second W though. And we'll get on to the next one. The 49ers went into Arizona and beat the Cardinals 45-29. This guy, Charvarius Ward, came up with 2 picks, including the pick six, just an absolute star. He's been balling all year. The Cardinals competed. They definitely competed. They put up some points, but it was kind of just Kyler and Trey McBride just playing backyard football out there against the best NFL team that we've seen in kind of a while. So it went how we expected. Brock Purdy continued his dominance. Debo Samuel, he threw that dot to Debo Samuel was an absolute dime. By the way, that was a great throw from Brock Purdy. You don't always see like a great accurate. Like that was just a great throw. It was a opposite of the field, just a great throw from Brock Purdy. So you love to see that, and the Niners are just the best team in rolling.
Yeah, that was an incredible throw. That kind of like back shoulder Debo like slid and got it like only spot where he could catch it. It was a fantastic throw. But shout out to the Cardinals, I guess, scoring 29 on the 49ers. Like that's better than I would have thought, with this insane 49ers team. And Kyler Murray, obviously throwing a couple picks, but I mean, this is a game they had no shot. They're just not as talented as the 49ers. The 49ers are the hottest team in the NFL. Every single person on the 49ers from every position is just so dominant, and it just shows. That's the takeaway for me is 49ers are dominant, everyone's a star, and they are the best team in the NFL, like we say every week.
It's so fun to watch, honestly. Like the beginning of the year, we were talking about Tua and him being the best point guard in the NFL, getting into all his weapons. But now it's just fun to watch Brock Purdy, and he's like a perfect point guard, getting it to some of the best electric weapons that we have really seen in the NFL. And George Kittle hasn't even really gotten going, and it's just been really fun. Christian McCaffrey, I highlighted him in our stud of the week segment, but he just absolutely went off 3 touchdowns in this one. He can take over any game. He is the star. He should be the offensive player of the year. If Tyreek doesn't get, I don't know. I guess it's kind of hard with Tyreek Hill existing. So I don't know why I said that. It should be down to one of them. They could honestly both be MVP candidates. They're just absolute studs. And this whole Niners team's rolling fantasy takeaways. You start every Niner and you hope that they can win you guys a championship because they're just electric.
100%. And, from the 49ers side of things, James Conner is really picking it up for these fantasy playoffs. Trey McBride is absolutely electric. He's the number one target in that offense. And Kyler Murray is he's not bad, with the rushing upside and everything. Depending on who your quarterback is, Kyler Murray could definitely be an option.
Yeah, Kyler's definitely got a good baseline, and you definitely love to see James Conner stepping it up. And yeah, I think the biggest takeaway for the Cardinals is Trey McBride moving forward is just a star tight end. He looks like a mini Kittle out there. It's really fun. So with that, we'll get on to the next one. The Commanders went into LA and lost to the Rams, 28-20. The game was not as close as the score shows. I'll say that right now. That was a very misleading score. If you missed the game, Jacoby Brissett was absolutely dealing in the fourth quarter after Sam Howell got benched to kind of make this game look close. That should be proof, by the way, to Commanders fans that Sam Howell isn't it. Jacoby Brissett was dealing. He looked like a pretty competent quarterback, and he looked like maybe you guys will regret not playing him earlier in the season. I don't know, but it's going to go back to Sam Howell, and the Rams are kind of still dominant. They're in the thick of things for the NFC playoff race, and they're looking like they could be a threat in the playoffs. Like as of right now, they're going to play the Lions in the playoffs, and I could see them making a real run. I could see Stafford against his old team, making a real run against the Lions. So I think the Rams are just a dangerous team right now.
Yeah, no, the Rams are actually really, really good. It's just it's weird to say that because we were memeing their roster at the beginning of the season, but the Rams are a good football team, and the Washington Redskins are just meh. And I'm on the train of let's fire Ron Rivera, let's start fresh, let's cleanse this organization.
Yeah, definitely 100%. When you go into fantasy takeaways, finally Terry McLaurin has a good game. I probably when no one started him in the entire earth. So of course Terry does good. Curtis Samuel has a really good game. He has so much volume. But for the Rams, you're really happy that Cooper Cup's finally healthy. He looks fully back. I think people are starting to ask if Cooper Cup fell off in the middle of the season, but I think it's pretty safe to say that he was just injured in the middle of the season and he's back and healthy. And he's back to being Cooper Cup. So you love to see that. And Kyron Williams kind of just took over this game and won this game by himself. Kind of like what we said with Rashad White. He's just absolutely balling. You love to see it from Kyron too.
Yeah, I mean, just again, just to sum it all up, why are the Rams good? I don't know. I was trying to figure it out, but they have a lot of, undrafted guys, late round picks, just all performing at a high level, and it's honestly scary because those guys are the ones who want it the most, and you can see it in this Rams football team. They're just good, and it's crazy without a lot of star talent. Outside of your Cooper Cup, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Donald, it's a lot of no name guys that are just absolutely balling. So love the way that Sean McVay has coached this organization. Les Snead is drafted. It's a master class. And then like I said, on the other side of the ball, just cleanse it so you can become the Commanders again because you are the Redskins as long as Ron Rivera is your head coach.
Yeah, and yeah, like you said, Sean McVay has just been in his absolute bag, proving that he's the top coach in the NFL this year. It's crazy how good they've been. It's really fun. One of the more fun teams to watch this year for sure. And with that, we'll get on to the next one, really fun one. The Cowboys went into Buffalo and lost to the Bills 31-10. I guess I should say they lost to James Cook 31-10 because James Cook literally was the Bills offense in this one. He had 25 carries for 179 yards and a touchdown. That's just insane. He had two catches for 42 yards and a touchdown in the air. James Cook just absolutely took this game over. Josh Allen had seven completed passes and 15 attempts. If that shows you what he really needed to do in this domination of a performance, he literally beat the Cowboys on seven completed passes because James Cook literally carried so hard. So just respect to James Cook. It was honestly, he looked like prime Dalvin Cook. I think he's looked like prime Dalvin Cook the last few weeks, and that's what we wanted heading into the season is the Bills to use him like a workhorse running back. And that's really kind of changed their season and made them a contender again. So you love to see it for the Bills.
Yeah, wild, wild games from James Cook. I mean, I'm not even gonna lie. I've been to James Cook hater. I've hated the way that they've maybe I mean we've all hated on the running backs, but maybe it's just the way the coaching staff is called, these plays and just not committing to the run. I mean, when you commit to the run and you have a good running back, I mean, maybe this was the result they never fully committed. It was always Josh Allen running, and then one of their running backs had 5 or 6 carries for a handful of yards. But it's just they finally committed to the run and against a really good Cowboys defensive line, which is just crazy to me. And it was a statement game for the Bills. It was a statement game, and it was a hell of a game. And James Cook, just wow, wow. That was a performance. That was incredible to watch. And this game definitely caught me by surprise.
Yeah, definitely. Are you looking at the Cowboys any differently? Are you still kind of thinking that they're that dominant team that we were thinking they were a week ago? Or are they scaring you more against like top teams? Because I think the Bills proved they're a top team.
Yeah, I mean, really, when you go look at the Cowboys' schedule, outside of that dominating win from the Eagles last week, um, they've not been impressive. They beat up on poor football teams, and they struggle against good football teams, excluding last week against the Eagles. But yeah, I don't know. I am a little worried. The Cowboys, I think, over the last 4 years have had the most wins, but have like one playoff win to show for it. So I don't know. I don't know if they don't have that ultimately that ice in their veins, to finish games out when they matter. I feel like the Cowboys win a lot, but they don't win when it matters. And so I am a little nervous. Obviously, they are a playoff team. I think they already clinched the playoffs. But I guess I don't know. Their offense was very stagnant. It seems like if you can't get Dak and CD going, the offense is just a little stagnant and lost. So I guess I am a little worried. I mean, I'm not panicking, but I am worried.
That is the key. Dak and CD just have to get going in a big game against a big team. I think that's the key is Dak and CD have to kind of dominate like they did against the Eagles. And for fantasy takeaways, like James Cook had 221 yards. The Cowboys' entire offense had 92 total yards. That is absolutely ridiculous. So the Bills are running their offense through James Cook, and James Cook is a league winner, an absolute league winner. So you start him, and it's kind of affecting Dalton Kincaid and Stephon Diggs and all these options are kind of being negatively affected by James Cook, but James Cook's just an absolute stud. So you start him, and the Cowboys options have been a little bit cold the last few weeks, but you still have to start them.
100%. And kind of wild to me how it's kind of seems like this is kind of a trend how like strong that Stephon Diggs will start a season and how he just kind of fades throughout the season. It's kind of weird. I guess I don't understand. It seems like it almost happens every season, but Stephon Diggs starts as like wide receiver one, and then in the like end of the season, he just kind of vanishes.
Speaking of the Diggs brothers, shout out to Trayvon Diggs, who's kind of been tweeting about the Bills all year, saying Stephon Diggs needs to get out. Stephon Diggs needs to get away from 17. That definitely did not age well in this matchup. That was kind of a disaster take for this matchup right here. 31-10 for the Bills. So shout out to Josh Allen for proving his star receiver's own brother wrong. But we'll get on to the next one, the Sunday Night Football game. The Ravens went into Jacksonville and beat the Jaguars 23-7. The Ravens are playing at the top of the AFC. I think they're easily the best team in the AFC now. I don't even think it's close. Lamar is playing MVP football. He's playing like MVP Lamar. He's really fun. He's just so fun to watch. Any third down, fourth down, you kind of know that he's going to run, make a fun play, make a fun elusive run and get the first down. He's just so fun. He's playing some hot football right now. And the Jaguars are not playing hot football right now. They're really they just leave so much out on the field. I honestly I think the Jaguars had some opportunities to win this game, and they leave so much out onto the field. They just a struggle. Like I'm not too worried about them. I have a feeling that they could, click in any specific week and get hot before the playoffs, but it's just not been good the last few weeks for them, and they're just not fully clicking. And the Jaguars are a weird team, honestly.
Yeah, their offense has been very anemic, and it's like when they have chances to capitalize, they just fall apart. And it's just kind of been weird. It's been a weird, kind of tough to watch their offense play football. The last couple of weeks, they just seem so stale and I don't know, uncreative, and just they can't get anything going right. The football is not bouncing their way ultimately. Um, and yeah, I don't know. It's a little interesting, not the right time to be on a cold streak for the Jags. But yeah, I mean, you are playing the Ravens, who are just electric, and Lamar, who's probably second, runner up for MVP of the league. He is just playing. I mean, Lamar as a passer is incredible. Lamar as a runner, we've known is incredible. I mean, how his game has progressed, and what kind of passer he's turned into is just pretty amazing. And I mean, this team, as long as Lamar's doing his thing, is probably the best team in the AFC.
He's like a consistent top passer at this point. For over a year now, it's almost 2 years. He's just been a top passer in the NFL, consistently making dots of throws, keeping his team in games, just making great plays. He's an absolute stud NFL MVP candidate at this point. You have to respect it. And his receivers weren't great. I will say in this one, Odell was not great. Zay Flowers was not great. Isaiah Likely was sensational in this one. Isaiah Likely went 5 for 70 and a touchdown and had two really, really great catches where he went up and got him. So you like to see that from Likely, but Odell and Zay Flowers do need to step it up and kind of help Lamar more because they could have been even more explosive if those receivers stepped up.
Oh, 100%. But it is just amazing. I mean, Lamar is just your Madden cheat code. When you play Madden, you want to play with Lamar because he is a cheat code. I mean, what he does out there when he sits in the pocket, everything collapses, everything breaks down. There goes Lamar for 20, 30 yard run. It's just, he is incredible. I love Lamar Jackson. I just he's so fun to watch. He's probably the most electric player in the NFL.
Absolute stud. And then going over to the Jaguars for fantasy takeaways, I wanted to ask you about ETN. What are your thoughts on ETN right now? He's been the RB 18 since week 10. We were really low on him coming into the year, and he kind of made us apologize the first half of the season. We were literally just apologizing every recap episode because he was playing so good. But yeah, like I said, he's been RB 18 since week 10. The last few weeks, he's just been kind of, meh. What are your thoughts on Travis Etienne, especially like for takeaways moving into next fantasy season? Is for Dynasty, like is Travis Etienne scary to you, or what are your thoughts?
I'm not too scared. I feel like it's just kind of overall the whole Jacksonville offense has just taken a step down from how they started. And I think they need to get back to their roots and they need to start getting ETN and start feeding him more through the air and through the ground. And I think that's when their offense was the most electric, when ETN and Evan Ingram are out there actually, getting really involved. And I think it's just the lack of usage. I think ETN's a guy that needs 15 to 20 carries to truly be effective and start heating up. When you're giving him 10 carries, I just don't feel 5 to 10 carries. I don't feel like that's enough. I feel like ETN needs to be a guy you rely on early and often because he starts to heat up. And I kind of blame the Jaguars offense and offensive coordinators for just having kind of an anemic offense at the moment.
Yeah, it really is just so stale and anemic. Yeah, you're right. And Evan Ingram's an absolute star. Did you think the Calvin Ridley catch was a touchdown? That was really close.
I don't know. I mean, that bobble was a
The
little
bobble made it so impossible to say. Like I
it
don't know.
was so sus. I don't know. I would have probably said yes. I honestly probably would have said yes, but the bobble was I understand why it wasn't because I don't know. I don't know. That bobble was tough. It was tough. But I mean, I would have ultimately said yes, but I mean, I understand why they said no.
Yeah, I wouldn't have complained either way. It was like one of the closer catches I've seen. It was really close. But with that, we'll get on to the last game of the week. Really fun one. The Eagles went into Seattle and lost to the Seahawks 20-17. They lost to Drew Lock, this guy right here, the Brazilian backup quarterback. Drew Lock threw a dot for the win to Jackson Smith and Jigba. That was a great catch, great throw. That was pretty improbable. I was not expecting that. There weren't really too many vibes going out, even in this game, that the Seahawks were going to win it. It kind of looked like the Eagles were just kind of going to grind it out and win it through the ground. Just a sloppy game, but no, the Seahawks came out and did their thing in the end. DK Metcalf made some plays when he really needed to after a quiet game. So, yeah, really fun for Drew Lock to kind of get this win. His post game interview was pretty fun. He was super honest and candid. So you like to see it. Drew Lock's a good guy, so it's fun to see.
Yeah, incredible game from Drew Lock, and he's kind of getting emotional there at the end. He's like, it's just been so long since like I've gotten an opportunity, and I mean, he showed the most of it, and he showed why he's probably going to be one of the higher paid backups in the NFL, and could go to a team and get like if he was going to like the Browns or the Jets, and a team where he can get some start opportunities, and even here on the Seahawks, when Gino goes, I think Drew Lock will kind of get a little bit of a bag for a backup quarterback, um, moving forward because he's a good quarterback. I mean, he was dealing out there, and he had these guys playing really good football and against a really good Eagles defense, and I mean that throw to Jackson Smith and Jigba at the end was just beautiful, man. I mean that was picture perfect. I mean, what a just incredible throw.
The Eagles pass rush was getting there on that throw too, and he just stepped into it, and yeah, he made a beautiful throw. Beautiful from Seahawks. We've been talking a lot of positivity, but what are your thoughts on the Eagles? Jalen Hurts has kind of had 3 down games. His press conference, he was super pissed and snappy at the reporters. He was saying I forgot exactly what it was. He said they needed to play better or something, and then he was saying that they need to look up the definition on because he doesn't have a dictionary next to him. He was just getting really snappy at the reporters, and he said that the Eagles just don't have fight. So, what are your thoughts on the Eagles? Are you scared of the Eagles? You weren't scared of the Cowboys, so.
I'll have to watch that press conference. I didn't see that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. The Eagles kind of have fallen asleep at the wheel. Is this a third straight loss? Is this 3 weeks or is it
They didn't lose. It's their second straight loss. Oh yeah, it is a third straight loss because the
yeah,
Niners.
this
That's
is
a rough schedule right there. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I mean it went Niners, Cowboys, Seahawks, right?
Yep. And they beat the Bills right before. That's a rough stretch.
Yeah, that's I mean that's a lot. That's tough games, and we kind of knew the Cowboys would end up beating them. I don't know. I'm not too worried about the Eagles. I think they'll. I mean, they're fine. They kind of need to get their asses handed to them a few times. I think it'll probably be for the better of this team. To kind of get humbled right now so they can get hot for the playoffs because they're a playoff team. Obviously, they're a lock in the playoffs. Um, but yeah, I think that I don't know. I'm not too worried. I mean, it's still their team seems to be healthy. Their offensive line has stayed clean for the most part this year. You got AJ Brown, you got Devontae Smith, DeAndre Swift is playing really good. Um, their secondary scares me. Their secondary is weak. You can throw on them. So I mean, gosh, that aspect does scare me. But the whole rest of the team does not scare me. I think it's just the vulnerability of their secondary that ultimately frightens me. But I think the Eagles will get right. But that secondary is very, very vulnerable.
All right. I guess for the Eagles and Cowboys, I asked you that question, and it's kind of just a relative question, but let's make it better. Like they obviously could beat any NFC team, but can the Cowboys and Eagles beat the Niners? That's the question I'm asking you. Can the Cowboys and are you confident that they can even hang with the Niners right now?
No, no, not right now. I mean, they're going to play the Niners next week. They'd lose by 20, 30. They're not on the Niners level. The Niners have already had their get right. They went on their, little 3-game losing streak, and the Niners are hot right now. So until the Eagles do that, until the Cowboys can play consistent against good teams, I mean, there's no team that can beat the Niners right now. I mean, even in the AFC, I'm not too confident. I'm not too confident any team can beat the Niners right now. They're so hot. Obviously, right now, I'd say put them against the Ravens as my Super Bowl pick at the moment. But I don't know. That Niners team is just one of the better teams I've seen. Period.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't really think you can argue that. Obviously, after this week, the Seahawks or sorry, the Eagles and Cowboys have some work to do. They have some holes to sort out through, and the 49ers really don't. They don't have any kinks to sort out through. They're just the Niners, and they're rolling through everyone. So yeah, I do agree they have some work to do to get onto that level. And the last thing I'll mention is that quote I was mentioning. Jalen Hurts said that he doesn't think the team is committed enough right now, and when asked what that meant, he said commitment. I don't know. I don't have a dictionary on it right now. That sounds like an answer I would say, but just funny. He was very frustrated.
That's wild. No, I love when people get snappy at the reporters. 'Cause I mean, that's the reporter's job is to get under these guys' skin. It's actually funny when it works.
So,
That's kind of a troll. That's a troll comment back. So Jalen Hurts.
any extra hot takes before we get out of here?
Yeah, I was kind of prepared for this one. I was thinking, a couple minutes ago, what it should be, and it's kind of a dumb one, but give me the Panthers. This is the stupidest hot take to make, but that's why it's a hot take. Give me the Panthers winning one more game or two more games, and the Patriots ultimately moving up into the number one draft spot and getting Caleb Williams. Imagine that. Imagine the Belichick masterclass. It would be brutal.
As someone that's seen the Patriots and Tom Brady rule the NFL over the last 20 years, I'm good. I don't want to see Bill Belichick get pick one. I'm good. Drake May is enough. I'm good on that. I hope that doesn't happen. But yeah, I don't know why all of your hot takes are about the Panthers. By the way, you got a weird thing.
My mind's on the draft. The Panthers suck. It comes together somehow.
If your mind is also on the draft, if your team's kind of out of things, we've got a lot of draft content coming out. We got our mock draft, our way too early mock draft that just released. So check out the NFL Seekers podcast, subscribe if you liked, and peace.
Sir, peace.